Hi everyone. Today we're going to deal with Introduction to Theoretical Linguistics. Linguistics is defined as the scientific study of language. So linguistics deal with language, and language itself consists of three main components: speech sound, grammar, and meaning. And they are all related together in language. So speech sound can be studied from two main components: phonetics and phonology. So they are combined together in the study of speech sound. So in order to deal with phonology, we have to understand phonetics. The second component is the grammar. Grammar itself is also divided into morphology and syntax. Morphology, it means word formation. Word formation, it comes from the morpheme, which is the minimal meaningful unit, and the suffixes and prefixes we add to the word. Syntax itself, it deals with grammar, with the sentence construction. The last component is the meaning. Meaning, we're going to deal with meaning in semantics. So if we look at, those four or five components here, we find this is, the content of the course Introduction to Linguistics. So the course will be divided into the first chapter about phonetics, the second about phonology, the third about morphology, the fourth about syntax, and the fifth about semantics. Now, what is phonetics? The definition of phonetics is the study of speech sound of human language. The speech sound can be studied from 3 points of view. It can be from articulatory point of view, acoustic point of view, and auditory point of view. Articulatory phonetics investigate and classify speech sound in terms of the way they are produced by the organs of speech. The second one, acoustic phonetics. It investigates and classifies speech sound in terms of the physical properties of the sound waves, which are created by the activity of the speech organs in articulatory phonetics, and which travel through the ear from the speaker to the hearer. The third one is auditory phonetics. It studies speech sound in terms of the way they are perceived and identified by the hearer's ear and brain. So if you look at this chart, it discusses, the life cycle of the speech sound. Life cycle of speech sound, it consists of the production, and the production deals with articulatory phonetics. The second is acoustic, which is the sound waves traveling in the ear from the speaker to the hearer. And the third one is auditory, which is the perception, when the ear perceives and the brain analyzes the speech. Articulatory phonetics, and this is which you are going to deal with in this chapter of phonetics. In articulatory phonetics, speech sound are classified in terms of, first, speech organs that produce them, second, manners in which they are produced, and the third one is the airstream mechanism involved. Airstream mechanism. What do we mean by airstream mechanism? The majority of sounds used in languages of the world are produced by harmonic, aggressive airstream mechanism. What we mean by harmonic? Harmonic air, it comes from the lungs. And aggressive air means that the air is pushed out of the mouth, out of the body. And the third one which is Airstream Mechanism, a non-stop process. So if you look at the chart here, the chart can be, okay, this comprises the length. This is the reservoir where the air comes. Then we have the muscles of the chest, which are flexible, and the windpipe. This is, the respiratory system for the product. So this chart also summarizes what we have seen before. We have the first one here. We have aggressive pulmonic airstream. As we say, aggressive means, okay, pushed out pulmonic from the lungs, and airstream. So we started, the air start from the lungs, or the speech sound start from the lungs, then it goes into the vocal cords in the velum, then pushed out of the throat into the mouth and nose, and then get out of the body. So the first distinction we're going to deal concerning the speech sound is voiced and voiceless sound. What we mean by voiced and voiceless sound? As the air moves up through the windpipe and through the glottis, which has an opening space between the vocal cords, if the vocal cords are kept apart, the air is not obstructed at the glottis. It passes freely without vibration of the vocal cords. The sound produced in this way are called voiceless sounds, so which means there is an absence of the vibration of the vocal cords. The second one, if the vocal cords are kept close together, the air forces its way through and causes them to vibrate. Such sounds are called voiced sounds. So if you look at the chart here, it explains, the three phases of the opening and closing of the vocal cords. Those are the vocal cords, okay? So the first one, vocal cords are closed when we swallow, in order not, okay, to prevent, any other bodies to get into the windpipe. And the second one, this one, air causes vocal folds to vibrate between open and closed, okay, positions when we talk. So this is the position of, we are talking, take it, okay, the vocal cords take this position. And the third one, vocal cords are open when we breathe right. Nasals, the second division or the second distinction between sounds is nasal and oral sounds. What do we mean by nasal and oral sounds? Okay, the roof of the mouth or the palate is divided into two parts. The front part, which is hard and is called hard palate, and the second part is soft and called the soft palate or the velum, and the upper part, the end part of the velum, is called the uvula, as we are going to see in this chart. So here, this is the mouth. We got here the hard palate, and then we have this part which is flexible, which is movable, and it is the soft palate. The end of it is the uvula. This is, the uvula. It is a small node on the lower border of the soft scales. So, if the uvula is at the higher position, touching the back of the throat, it blocks the nasal passage, leaving only one way for the air to escape, which is the mouth. Such sounds are called oral sounds, and we are going to see them in this chart here. Okay, so if you look at here, if the uvula is in lower position, it blocks the nasal cavity, and the air finds only one way to get out, which is the mouth. If the uvula is at the lower position, the air escapes through the nose as well as the mouth. Such sounds in this way are called nasal sounds, as we say in the chart here. So the air goes up and find a way when the uvula is in lower position, it gets out of the But the speech sound also can be classified according to whether they are consonants or vowels. What's the difference between consonants and vowels? Consonants, they are speech sound and produced by obstructing the air as it passes through the mouth. While the vowels are made by just changing the shape of the oral cavity. The air passes freely through the oral cavity without any obstruction or restriction. Classification of the consonant. Consonant can be classified according to place of articulation. What do we mean by place of articulation? The place in the vocal tract where the greatest obstruction occurs. And we have, manner of articulation or manners of articulation, the way the organs of speech are employed to produce speech sounds. Places of articulation. Okay, when we consider places of articulation, the phoneticians have found out almost from 9 to 11 places of articulation. They started from the very front, which are the labials. So what do we mean by labials? Labials are divided into two classes. We have bilabials. We use both lips together, like a p and a p. And B, bilabiodontals, the lower lip into contact with the upper teeth when we produce f and v. Then we have interdontals. Interdontals, the tip of the tongue between the upper and lower teeth as we produce a th and a v. Th, th. Then we have the alveolars, which are the tip of the tongue against the alveolar or teeth ridge. T, d, s, z, n, t, z, l, and r are all pronounced in the alveolar ridge. Then we have the post-alveolars, or we call them also alveolar palatals. The front part of the tongue against the hard palate, we produce sh, j, ch, and j. The palatals. The palatals, they're the only one in language, the back of the tongue against the hard palate, and the glide here we produce here. Number 6, the velars. The back, so we produce by the back of the tongue to the soft palate or the venom, and we have ka, ga, and we have ha and ra in European languages. Then we have the uvula. Uvula is in Arabic, so the back of the tongue to the uvula we pronounce qaf, qa. And then we have number 8, the glottals articulated in the glottis, and we have laha and laha, a, hamza, a in Arabic, hamza, and we have laha in the language. Retroflex. Retroflex are produced by turning the tip of the tongue behind the hard palate, which is ra, and we find it more in American English when the Americans want to pronounce the word war and bar, so they pronounce it in this way. Then we have manner of articulation. Consonant in manner of articulation are divided into two main parts. The first part, the sonorants, and the second part, the obstruents. Sonorants consist of glides, liquids, and nasals. And the obstruents consist of stop. Stop also are divided into nasal stops and oral stops. Then we have the fricatives and the affricate. So we look at, the sounds here. Concerning the glides, we have y and w. The liquids, we have two, l and r. And the nasals, we have n and n. Then we have the orals, stop, oral stops. The fricatives, f and ch, and the affricate. What do we mean by affricate? It is a stop, oral stop, plus fricative, give us an affricate. For example, t, we take it with the t, it gives us T with C, it gives us C, or D with Z, it gives us Z. Classification of the vowels. As I said before, in the production of the vowels, there is an absence of the obstruction of the air. They don't have places of articulation or manners of articulation in the same sense as the consonant. We have to consider just the total shape of the oral cavity. So the vowels, the oral cavity changes according to, we classify the vowels according to the tongue position. Tongue position, what part of the tongue is involved? Is it the front part or the back part? How high is the tongue toward the palate? Is the tongue high or low? And the second one is the mouth position, whether the mouth is open or closed. Then we have the lips. The lips, whether the lips are round or they are flat, which is an and round. So as we see in this chart here, we have the first sound. Look at the tongue is very high here. When we pronounce E, like in green, okay? This one here. The second one we have, okay, we have like red. Okay, look at the tongue, little bit higher, and then we have the third one, which is in A. The tongue get lower, and with the A, it gets in the lowest position. So the chart here of primary cardinal vowels. So we find here from high to low, which means from close, the mouth is closed to open. And then we have from front to the back. And in the middle here, we find the central vowel, which is the schwa. Between the close and open, we have mid-close, and we have like O, and mid-open like O. Okay? The same thing for high. E is high, and A is mid-high. A is low-high, and A is low. The cardinal vowels. In order to achieve an accurate and reliable description of the vowels of all human languages, phoneticians have set up a system of cardinal vowels. This mustn't be identified with the vowels of any actual language. They are used as points of reference from which other vowels can be measured and described. There are 19 cardinal vowels, 8 primary and 11 secondary cardinal vowels. Each of the primary cardinal vowels have its own counterpart among the secondary cardinal vowels, as we see in the chart here. This is, a chart that makes as a reference for all vowels exist in all languages of the world. So we find here from close to open, from back to the front here, and we have counterpart. For example, E, it is a high front vowel, but at the same time it is unrounded, and we find counterpart, which is U, like it exists in French language, U like lu, tu. It has the same frankness, the same closeness, but this is rounded and this is unrounded. So now we go to the exercises, which should look like that. So the first one, we have the consonant. So we'll give you the chart to fill. Give full classificatory features for each of the following consonants. We have place of articulation, manner of articulation, and voice, whether voiced or voiceless. Then we have the second exercise. Write the samples that correspond to each of the following phonetic descriptions. For voices example, we have voiceless with a stop, it is a K. So we do the same thing for the others. The second exercise is about the vowels. So we ask you to give the tongue position, whether front or back, tongue height, high or low, and lips with are rounded or unrounded. Example here we have an E. It is front, high, and unrounded. So we'll do the same for the rest of the vowels in question. The last exercise is circle the word that contain, for example, a diphthong, be low back vowel or unrounded vowel or central vowel or mid-low vowels. So this is, the end of phonetics. The second chapter will be phonology. Thank you very much for your attention.